I'm so sorry. Oops. Well, I hope I can cut that out in post. I apologise for this selfie stick nonsense. I pressed the go live button before I should have done. I will edit this out later. There's my palm. You will live with this pain. It's a free video. What are you going to do? Pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Do you know what I mean? So, I'm in a hotel in Madrid, and I'm waiting to fly somewhere to the UK, where I'm from. It makes sense that I would fly there. And I have nothing to do. And instead of filling the hour with some stupid activity, I decided to just sit and read and have a think. And people recommended me to read the book Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. I actually thought he was a stand-up comedian. People suggested on my last live, and I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of him. He's a stand-up, right? He's not a stand-up. This is a good book. And it's set in another time. It's set in World War II. And then, so I'm reading that, and I'm in his mental space, thinking about what he's thinking about. And I had a series of thoughts this morning. Drank a coffee, had started thinking, got the brain going, right? And I was like, these thoughts are what people call reactionary thoughts. Reactionary can mean that you just politically oppose somebody else's point of view because you just hate their political stance. But there's another meaning, and I don't know which one of these is correct because I'm politically illiterate or politically semi-literate. There's another meaning, which is that it's like a right-wing position, a conservative position where you believe that there was a better time in history that we need to go back to because there was more value to it. So here's my series of thoughts. World War II, husbands and wives, families, soldiers. And I saw my grandparents there, and I saw their friends there. We've got in my family some photos of like the dances that they would go to. They'd go to local dances, and you see how my grandmother was dressed, and sometimes my grandfather would go in his uniform. And there were Canadian airmen stationed in Port Sunlight, where my family is from, Bebington and Port Sunlight. And they would go to these dances as well. And there are a bunch of slick-looking chaps and chapettes. It's all fairly uniform. They're all dressed very similarly. Nobody has any neck tattoos. And I was thinking like this. Okay, here's my reactionary, if reactionary means what I said it means, here's my reactionary ramble. I'm relating this to the modern dating scene and the modern dating issue because people are really, really unhappy and they're really struggling to find love. So if we went back to 1935, 1945, that period, and we looked at the dating pool of, let's say 18 to 24-year-olds, and we pull out a standard issue female, not a radical feminist, doesn't think that she has to be a mother and a multi-millionaire entrepreneur at the same time, or else she's crushed with feelings of guilt and shame for failing the sisterhood. She hasn't had a huge number of sexual partners, hasn't consumed a lot of pornography in her life, or perhaps none, doesn't intend on having a bunch of sexual partners, wants to be a mother, loves her mum and dad, thinks her country is pretty good, thinks running a family is pretty cool, has humility and reasonable expectations. Told you, reactionary line of thinking. If it's true that this is like a conservative thing. Standard issue male, pull him out of the pool. Hasn't had a huge number of sexual partners, isn't driven completely bonkers by pornography that he's been consuming in 4K since the age of 10 on a mobile phone in his pocket, has no aspiration to bang a load of plastic surgery altered, tattooed, fake titted, fake lipped, fake fingernailed, fake haired, fake eyelashes, fake souled women, has never been addicted to drugs, has no intention of being addicted to drugs, has a good, healthy relationship with his father and mother, likes his country, thinks being a father is pretty fucking cool, is actually the coolest thing, and all of his peers agree. And his aspirations really stop at something realistic, like, I would like to be promoted. He's no aspiration to be a multi-millionaire influencer on Instagram. Okay, so I look back at that pool and I've created a simulation in my mind, and it could be wrong. These people could have been riddled with mental health issues that they suppressed. They could have been riddled with lusts and desires and tastes that we just knew nothing of, and they just brutally repressed them for years and dealt with them by beating their children or sexually assaulting their children, and we just never hear about it. Maybe. But we take that simulation I've just created and you compare it to the pool today. And I'll take a man or a woman at random between the ages of 18 and 24 in 2021. It doesn't matter whether they're considered ideologically radical. They hate their country. They hate capitalism. They hate patriarchy. They might be a radical leftist or a radical feminist. They might be riddled with guilt and shame for who they are at the identity level. They might hate their mum and dad. They might have been addicted to drugs. They might have had a stupendously high number of sexual partners, which I'm promiscuous by any measure. I've checked, like globally, like compared to the average of any country. And I don't know what it means. I'm not a Jordan Peterson. I'm not like, well, it's just wrong. It's wrong. Well, maybe it's wrong. I don't know that it's wrong. I don't know that it's not, that in another time and place where life was harder, this is what you're supposed to do. You're just supposed to have a lot of sex and it's actually natural. But I don't know that. And I don't know the emotional dysregulatory effects of having a ton of sexual partners. I don't know what it did to me because I can't compare it to not. I can't compare it to a scenario where I didn't have a ton of sexual partners. I can't say, well, it didn't affect me because in my other life where I didn't, I'm exactly the same. There's no point of comparison for me. I don't know how crazy it drove me. I did boys and girls in my right-wing 1940s fantasy. Did I do boys and girls in the modern fantasy? I think I had too much coffee this morning. Sometimes I don't have enough and I can't remember. Sometimes I have too much and I can't remember. What I'm saying is it any wonder the mess we're in terms of romance and love? Like, having a family is lame. I'm supposed to do a video. I'm scared to do it. I will do it because a couple of girls in my life whose opinions I respect and value and I care about a lot, and I say girls because they are younger, want me to talk about the pressure that young women are under now to perform, and that they don't feel like it's enough for them to just be mothers. There's two girls I'm thinking of particularly. All they want to do is be mothers. They just want to get married and have kids and do nothing else. And they've only told me. They've not even told their own, that they can't tell their own mothers that. In one case, and I'm not making this up, the girl's a Muslim in a Muslim country. And she's not allowed to just want to be a mother, a Muslim in a Muslim country, a conservative Muslim country. She's not allowed to just be a mother because her mother is a famous lecturer in not feminism, but like critical theory, something adjacent to feminism, and her mother just wouldn't tolerate it. And I'm like, mind fucking blown, man. Mind blown. She's not allowed to want to be a mum. I speak to lads nowadays. I'm going to do that video. I'm going to do the video about the obscenity of pressuring young women into feeling like they're a piece of shit for only wanting to be mothers. What's wrong with that? Can anybody tell me? Like, what the fuck is what? You could say, well, all the effort has been made so there could be so much more. Great, all for that. Let's not regress. If you want to be a doctor, you want to be a mechanic, you want to be a fucking astrophysicist, you go, girl, 100%. But we seem to have lost the idea that some people are exceptional. Not everybody's going to be a fucking doctor, La. Not everybody's going to be a fucking astrophysicist. It just doesn't work that way. We should let the exceptional people, the exceptional goals, move forward, free from any restraint. We should support them, 100%. But that's not the same as saying to more normal people, the idea that all you want to do is be a mother is a crime. We've criminalized it. We've shamed young women into thinking that there's something wrong with them if that's their highest aspiration in life. And I think to myself, that really is sick. That really is perverse. And is this feminism? Tell me, 2021. Look at the world we live in now. Is this feminism? Is this the feminist utopia? It feels with like feminism and that movement towards equal rights, like it gathered so much momentum. It like a car moving really fast and then it hits the goal and you slam the brakes on and you're like, okay, we hit the goal. Yay, stop. And now it's gone off the edge of the cliff. And we've moved past women's rights now. We've moved to a state where we stroke our chins and go, should we let people who used to be men in MMA? Should we let people who used to be men punch women in the head in Muay Thai? I saw this. I witnessed this in Thailand. I was nearly in tears watching. They were a 40-year-old Thai man who'd probably been doing Muay Thai, in fairness, for about a year, and his opponent, an Australian girl of 24, and they went at it, and she did win, but he nearly beat her. He went the full rounds, and he nearly beat her by clinging onto her with his big man arms and holding her with his big man back so that she could, in what's called a Thai clinch, so she couldn't do any of the techniques that she'd spent years developing, because he was just smothering her with brute strength. And I was in the crowd tearing up at this. I was like, what is this? What are we doing? What is this? We're criminalizing young girls now. Was that feminism? Is this what we want? We're criminalizing humans for wanting to produce more humans. Can anybody tell me? I mean, it was my original channel's called Spartan Life Coach. And maybe I really am just getting old. And maybe there's still the Spartan philosophy is there. What is the greater role in society than mother? What is it? Tell me. If there are no mothers, there's no people. That's where people come from. Sorry to have to say this. Like, a man and a woman come together and they make humans. It's not optional. Not yet. It will be. It will. They'll work hard to make sure that it is. But right now, you need a sperm and an egg. That's it. It's not optional. There isn't a third option. Why are we criminalizing that? I don't get it. And how do we think this is going to work? One of the things that I want to say, I know that I must be ranting because I can feel this bit of my forehead beginning to sweat. Just here, just where I'm balding, it starts to sweat when I'm ranting. Let me calm down. Perspiring bald patch. What are we doing? I have to ask, what world are we creating? Is this a world we want to live in? Obsessed with race, obsessed with sexuality, obsessed with our flesh suits. We are moving backwards. We are moving into some sort of new dark age, and it's unforgivable because we're not ignorant. We've never been more informed, and yet we're moving backwards. We're trying to divide the world along racial lines. My God, really? Really? Because this worked so well before historically. It's worked just fucking great. Divide the world up. Let's do segregation again. This is okay. All right. Let's do segregation. Let's criminalize mothers and young women who want to be mothers. Let's make women hate men with a poisonous ideology that has nothing to do with equal rights and is blatantly, thinly veiled misandry. So men, heartbroken because, hey, fucking newsflash, men and women need each other. Wow, cancel that fucker. Men and women need each other. Humans need each other. Humans need each other. Even if that's not your sexual preference. You know, if I was gay and I just like men, I'd still need women around me. I wouldn't want to be just hanging around with men all the time, right? People need each other. Men and women need each other. So we've heartbroken men because women don't like them anymore and we don't know what to do. Men don't know what to do without women. We haven't got a fucking clue. We're in an environment where men are criminalized. Masculinity is criminalized. Being a man is taboo. Women don't want to know us. The women, seriously, talking, if you're in the dating pool, most people, like, men won't talk about this, but I'll say it. When you approach a woman as a man in any format, you start from a 0 point of aggression and resentment. Why? Because women have been told for years that men are the source of all evil in the world. So of course she's going to turn and look at a man and be like, what the fuck? One of you pieces of shit that I have to deal with? Ugh. And then you see like a broken, you know, barely functioning, depressed, anxious, self-image ruined man. And you complain that he's not a real man. Well, of course he isn't. All of his fucking internal boundaries have been stamped on. He's been told that he's fundamentally a criminal by dearth of his meat plumbing, of his genitalia, and by dearth of his sexuality. He is wrong. He is wrong, and he's guilty of all the crimes, all the sins of the world that have ever happened. And you go, well, this isn't a man. He's a simp. He's a walkover. He's a beta male. Of course he is. Who told him not to be? Who told him that he can be a man? Who told him it's good for him to be the man that he wants to be? Nobody. Show me his father. Was his father even there? And if his father was there, did he say anything? Or was he meek and passive and submissive? Was he even there at all? If the man was raised only by his mother and a weak father who didn't tell him that his natural drives and who he is by nature was a good thing, and society doesn't support it either, I mean, compare it to the 40s. Again, Richie sounding like a reactionary conservative here. Masculinity is good. Femininity is good. Men and women belong together. Families are good. Having kids are good. You're supported by mummy and daddy, primary caregivers, super important. All your peers are on board. Your government is on board. Your media is on board. Your church is on board. Wow. Wow. What a time. What a time to be alive. We are riddled with uncertainty and insecurity now, with this ideological poison that's flowing around in the space. No wonder. You know, you've got a fractured, scared, emotionally immature, spoilt, entitled buffoon of a girl who's got no idea what realistic expectations to have in life, desperately trying to attach through provocation, manipulation, and bullying to a fractured, frightened, depressed, anxious, repressed coward, total coward, who probably doesn't even know himself. And I would say that's it. Those are your options. Well done, everyone. Well fucking done. Well done. This is the world we built. Well done. Your political campaigning finally paid off, and here we are. This is your fucking utopia. Well done. What have we done? My question, before I start ranting again and the ball patch will start perspiring again. It's never good. That's my canary in the coal mine right there. What are we doing? What are we doing? What kind of a world are we trying to create? We have two choices. We can choose reality or fantasy. Along those similar choices, Those some of the lines. We can choose subjectivity, objectivity. We can choose a dream, an illusion, ideology, utopianism, or we can choose adulthood, pragmatism, and reality. We have no future like this. You cannot, like, think of a culture that criminalizes motherhood. That's a suicidal culture. That is cultural suicide. We've criminalized masculinity and we haven't criminalized femininity, not yet. But I would say that we've moved way past any feminist agenda now. I don't know what we're doing now. At the point where we have to have a debate about whether it's okay for women to get punched in the skull by physically larger human beings who were born physically larger and stronger, I don't think that this is a feminist utopia. Is this equal rights? Is this what you were fighting for? This is lunacy. And we have the conversation like it's all good. I'm like, did I miss a meeting? What are we even talking about this? Of course you can't have somebody who was born a man in a fist fight or a wrestling match with a woman. Like, that's that's crazy. That's completely crazy. To even consider it is utter lunacy. We criminalize motherhood. That is cultural suicide. We criminalize masculinity. That would be like a slow suicide, because the effects of criminalizing masculinity will take, really, the damage will be decades to manifest. But we're already seeing crashing testosterone levels. Crashing. Like, what is it now? The average 23-year-old in 2021 has the free testosterone levels of the average 60-year-old in 1950, something like that. Well, I don't say we, young men, not we, have no testosterone. Could it be that we've criminalized masculinity and being male? I wonder. So anyway, there's my reactionary sounding, right-wing sounding rant. What's the point? I guess the point is we're going to have to start asking ourselves very seriously now where this leads us. We have to stop thinking in terms of today. We've got to look into the future and be like, okay, where's this going to lead us? Because if we set up the rules of the game like this and then we play it for decades, there's going to be an end result. The future is bleak. And I never really realized it until this morning. And I was like, oh, let's just do a comparison. I could be wrong. People tell me in the comments, like the 1930s, 1940s, actually people were not pro-family. It wasn't congruent. They actually hated themselves. They hated their country. They hated family units, tell me. But as I run the simulation compared between today, the pool of people who would be dating today and the pool of people who would be dating before, I'm amazed. In fact, I'd turn it on its head and I would be saying I'm amazed anybody's in a relationship now. Probably the people who are in longer-lasting functional relationships now are probably operating from some other ideological space, or they've had an exceptional family unit, because we've got no role models for it now. Nothing. Okay, I've got another 5 minutes, so if anybody's got any questions or statements or protestations for me to brutally smash into oblivion, you can make them now. This is not a democracy. The social media makes you think this is a democracy. It's not a democracy. I am tyrant of my channel. Do you watch Red Bar? No, I don't know what that is. I probably won't answer questions that were answered, and I understand if you came in late, but I won't answer questions that were answered earlier in the video, because it'll be frustrating for the people who watch the video from scratch. Can you talk about animus? I can. How to bring children up in this world so they're not affected by toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. I really don't know. You would need, well, okay, I do know, but you're going to create another problem, Because if mummy and daddy are rebellious against mainstream culture, it would be like being raised by hippies. You know, all the kids at school will be like, oh, you watch the Kardashians? And you'll be like, no, we don't do that in my house. And, you know, what's your Instagram? No, in my house, there's no. So you can, but then you'd have to be very careful that your kids don't become like odd, sort of cerebral contrarians. So, but you can do it. The children of dissidents, somebody wrote here. Yes, they would. And we know the type, right? Like, those, obviously everybody here went to school, and it's probably been portrayed in films and stuff. You do get like there's a sort of an archetype, the children of dissidents, like the odd kids. So you can, but it will come at another cost. That's life. It's always like that. Animus and Jung need longer than 5 minutes. They certainly do. Obviously, we are, if people want to look it up, we are looking at broad scale anima possession of men, where they become cowardly and spineless and whinging, and animus possession of women, where they become bullying and demanding and aggressive. So men become possessed by a toxic version of yin, and women become possessed by a toxic version of yang. Outside influences are so strong against sensible learned behaviors given by parents. They are. And it's not realistic to think that none of it's going to get through, because you would have to be living, well, ideally we would live in a society, in a culture that wasn't like this, so you wouldn't have to worry about it. But the infected are always going to get through to a degree any of the barricades you can put up, because there's just more of them than you, and that's it. Lean says, damn, this was awesome. This needs to be discussed. Thank you. Glad you enjoy it. How should women approach men? I don't know. I'm not a dating coach guy. I really, really don't know. I really don't know what the right thing is. Are there women? Are there men? I mean, philosophically, that's a question that I wrestle with. You know, what's the social, cultural, and political context in which you would feel like you as a woman looking for men would need to ask me, a guy on YouTube, that question? That's an interesting question. Like, where are we where you would need to, so you have a problem to be solved, you know what I mean? And you have my sympathy. Like, men and women who are single now, like young women like yourself and younger men, you have my sympathy. Like, it's really tough. It's tough for me. I mean, I'm still single, and I still am, but I'm older, and I feel like I got to live my life, and I've got my sanity, and I've got like I don't know how to put it, like an internal I was allowed to do, even in the environment I was raised in, my culture wasn't that crazy at that time. So as a Gen Xer, I have like an internal space that's uncorrupted. That sounds like I'm saying I'm pure. I am uncorrupted. There's something in me that's not attacked, that doesn't have like the claws aren't in there. But when I speak to people who are just 12 years younger than me, I'm like, wow, they have no solace, it's like there's nowhere for them to hide. There's nowhere for them to run. The ideology is right, it's all the way in. So there are many of us seeing through it now. Yes. Do you feel safe to be male today? That's an interesting question. Safe. Do I feel safe to be male? Damn, that hit me like a Zen koan. I don't even know. I don't even, my brain doesn't work down those lines. I don't know how to answer that. My first impulse is to say, yeah, why wouldn't I? So I'm trying to think, why would that question be relevant to you? And it would be like, I presume you're talking about like accusations and defamation, being denounced and that kind of thing. I don't know that I feel safe, but I also don't feel threatened. So I don't feel the opposite. So I don't feel safe, but I don't feel threatened. I feel confident. I feel my masculine. Okay, so this is. I have an answer for you. I didn't have an answer for you. I was like, fuck. It's unusual for me to not have an answer. I feel my philosophy that I'd started developing on this issue specifically when I got out of my last relationship, which was a shit show, in 2017, was I started over the years, the 3 years after that, between 2017 and 2020, to develop a philosophy of like what it would mean for me to be masculine and what it would mean for me to be a male. And I see this as my little rebellion. I'm an emotionally literate, childhood abuse, PTSD, CPTSD informed, radical leftist informed male. And in my life, I'm as male as I want to be. I'm as masculine as I want to be. And I don't feel like I'm editing myself. But it's a kind of privilege not by gender or ethnic, but economic. I'm financially independent. I have a voice and I have a platform. And if they deplatform me, there would be a lot of people who would be peeved, and if I went somewhere else would follow me. And I have money in the bank, and I've been developing several businesses since I was 24. And it's like, well, yeah, so it's all right for you to say that you feel confident. But if I was working one job in a corporation, especially now, and I had a mortgage, I would feel threatened. I would be very, very careful. So I'm lucky. I am lucky. Well, lucky. I worked damn hard. I gave up years of my life, years of partying and having fun and doing spurious shit just so I could have this. Because, I always, in this weird sense, I think I knew something like this was coming. And I knew when I was 24, crystal clear, I saw a trajectory for me, it was 9/11. Because at that point, my application to join the army as an officer was in, and the army wanted me at Sandhurst. And then there was this dynamic between the application to Sandhurst, calls from colonels. Like there was there was two colonels. I'm saying colonel with a C, not colonel like a seed, who would call me regularly because that's what we used to do back in the day. We'd phone each other. It wouldn't be a text, we would call each other. And at the same time, 9/11 was, and the aftermath was unfolding. And from then until here, I was like, okay, I couldn't tell, wouldn't have been able to say exactly what it was going to be, but I knew it was going to get really bouncy. It was going to get super, super stormy. And I was like, you need to have your own money. So I can tell you what I did and what I'm doing, but great. You just be like, well, good for you. I'm not in a position to do that. So I feel okay, but you have my sympathy if you don't. I know I'm tuned in, I'm plugged in. I don't talk about it much, but I am plugged in to what men and women are going through. People just email me, or they WhatsApp me, or they DM me, and I'm told stories all the time. And it's not even on gender lines. It's not even on sexuality lines. I'm getting messages from 3 in 1 month this month. 3 gay men, young, who are all being attacked for being men. And I'm like, oh, so we've really moved beyond this kind of like, that you might think so, but in the 90s, for me, when I was growing up, you wouldn't do that as a liberal. You wouldn't do that as a leftist. There was a little bit of that. There would be a little bit of like, in the gay rights movement, you'd hear grumbles like, well, they might be gay men, but at the end of the day, they're still men. Yes, you did hear that. But now it's like, I don't know, there was a period of sort of protection. Like, oh, they're gay, I'm a lefty, generally speaking. They're gay, it's an oppressed group, protect them. It's gone. According to these young men. That's what they're reporting to me. There's no sense of that now. They're just stupid, toxically masculine men to be attacked. And this is part of my point. What I'm saying is like, what have we done? Was this the liberal utopia we were hoping for? If we're going to turn on people who now are or were classed as oppressed minorities, and that window of who the oppressed minority is shrinking, then you'll hear people like me going, Stalinist Russia, Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. We're panicking. People like me are panicking because we can see that that window of who passes the purity test of the orthodoxy is shrinking. It's not good. It's really, really not good. It's not a game. It's not like a political football kicked back and forth. This is really bad end time stuff because we live in ideology. We live in language. Sorry, I went on there. The 90s were the best. Right, so if you're a Gen X and you remember the 90s, just on this point of we're at minute 35 and I'm going to sign off soon because I need to go to the airport. Do you remember the show Queer as Folk? Queer as Folk. It had Jax from Sons of Anarchy, Charlie Hunman, and the Irish chap who I really like. He plays Littlefinger in Game of Thrones, and he plays like the gypsy traveller boss in Birmingham, McStabby, Peaky Blinders, right? Do you remember when that came out? And the response to that and how the liberal media covered it? I mean, it was pretty graphic TV show. Queer as Folk, it was called. But the atmosphere in which it came out, and then you, as a lefty, compare it to today, and you just think, I don't think they would release it now. It was graphic, sexually speaking. I don't think you could release something like that now, which to me that's the other canary in the coal mine, apart from my sweating ball patch here, is have we moved backwards in terms of liberalism? Not like that. When I say that show was sexually graphic, it was probably a little much. It was too much. But what I'm saying is, I don't think you could release that now. It's, 24 years later? I think Queer as Folk came out in 97, 98. Maybe 95? No. Okay, let's say 90, it doesn't matter. More than 20 years ago. I don't think you could release it now like that. So have we moved backwards, is my question. Just a side question. Holder says, I would have loved being married, raising my children and do my artwork and herbal teas for side income, but I was really waging the toughest war on this planet. Okay. Thanks. I don't know what that word is, but I'm not going to say it in case it's the kind of thing that gets me cancelled. Thanks, certain people, for the low birth rates, abortions, OnlyFans, and other degeneracy. You ruined the only place that gave you rights. Pointing out boxes creates more boxes and solidifies the focus on the focus of the shape. Why would we all want to focus on impairment? Yeah, it's there's a fractal psychedelic effect to this, isn't there? It becomes like a turtles all the way down. Like, where does it end? I was talking about this on an IG Live last night, where you look at like this snake eating its own tail with the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, where they say, kill the city dwellers. Okay, we killed the city dwellers. Kill the intellectuals. Okay, we kill the intellectuals. There must be more intellectuals because there's still rebellion in the ranks. How do we find the rest of the intellectuals? Round up the people who wear glasses, torture them, make them give you the names of 5 other intellectuals, and then when you're done, kill them with a hammer. And you think, wow, that's, when I'm talking about the window closing on who passes the purity test of the orthodoxy, we've already done this as human beings. Humanity's already done this. That Khmer Rouge and Cambodia is not that long ago, relatively speaking. And I think that's really what concerns me, because it is Ouroboros. It's a snake that eats its own tail. It's pure chaos. Speaking as a lefty, man. I'm speaking as a lefty. But you go, like, there's certain places you go, maybe this is right for you because I think it's reverse in internet land, but this is my left. You keep going that way and you get some very, very strange places. In the same way, if you keep going to the right, you get some very, very strange places. You know, people cite the horseshoe theory. They end up meeting in the middle. All right, guys. Thank you for indulging me on that one. I hope it was useful, and I hope I said something that made sense. And so, thank you all very much for your time and for your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Cheers.